August 22nd, 2006 was a momentous day in the history of Ballymote. The Mayor of New York, Michael Bloomberg, came to town to unveil Ireland's national monument to the New York National Guard's famous 69th Infantry Regiment and Brigadier General Michael Corcoran. So who was this great man? Gillian Marsh Productions compiled a special feature on his life and career for RTE's nationwide programme.
It's a great pleasure and honour for me to be back in my hometown of Ballymote today as Chief of Staff of the Irish Defence Forces on the occasion of the unveiling of this monument to Michael Corcoran.
He was born in 1827 outside of Ballymote in Carrickeel, and Michael was very, very much affected by the distress and the starvation and the evictions that were happening around him. So Michael enforced the law of the land during the daytime, but at night he was involved in cattle raids and in all kinds of militant activities against the British establishment of the day and of course the landlord system. He left the country in an awful hurry. It seems that arrest was imminent because the authorities were gathering evidence on him. He left on the Dromahir in 1849 and landed in America.
Brigadier General Michael Corcoran became one of the Civil War's most revered heroes. When he returned to New York City after months of captivity in the South, enormous crowds thronged him in a parade up Broadway to New York's City Hall, where I currently work.
Up to the time of the Civil War, the Irish were a very lowly class in America at that time. But they came to prominence on both sides during the Civil War and rose to high rank and showed tremendous leadership.
When John F. Kennedy came to Dáil Éireann in 1963, in what was a very historic visit to Dáil Éireann, he presented to the Irish nation the flag of the 69th Irish Regiment, which hangs in place of honour within Leinster House.
Today, in recognition of what these gallant Irishmen and what millions of other Irish have done for my country, and through the generosity of the Fighting 69th, I would like to present one of these flags to the people of Ireland.
I suppose you can imagine that Kennedy and the team around him wanted to bring something of very special significance to mark the Irish-American contribution. And it's significant that it was the flag of the 69th that was chosen. And the visit of John F. Kennedy certainly brought the Corcoran name and the name of the Fighting 69th into great prominence.
He was always a man of principle and never forgot Ireland in all his activities in America. He was a colonel in the 69th Regiment enforcing the law of the land, but he was also an officer and very active in the Fenian Brotherhood. So he was working overground and underground, and very successfully so. My opinion is that it was entirely appropriate that General Michael Corcoran be honoured today. He may have lived in America and risen to fame in America, but he had to leave his country under a cloud because he was against oppression wherever he found it.
What's been unveiled today is Ireland's national monument to the Fighting 69th Irish Regiment, incorporating Brigadier General Michael Corcoran, and also incorporating at the base a steel from the Twin Towers. The 69th Regiment was the first regiment on that fateful day to respond, because their HQ is on Lexington Avenue, which is only a stone's throw from the Twin Towers. The 69th leads down the annual St. Patrick's Day celebrations on 5th Avenue, the largest celebration in the world. Its mascot is an Irish wolfhound. Its patron saint is St. Patrick's. It's a real rich Irish heritage there that we were so delighted to celebrate here in Ballymote at this unveiling.
During the Civil War, the members of the Fighting 69th wore green sprigs in their hats, just as the United Irishmen had done in the 1798 uprising. In honor of the wearing of the green, I've brought with me a sprig of grass from Corcoran's gravesite as a symbol of his enduring spirit.
Corcoran, at the age of 36 years old, suffered a stroke. Shortly after that he died, and the year that he died was 1863. So it was a sad and inglorious end to quite a remarkable life of a man who, had he lived, might have accomplished great things.
On behalf of the people of New York City, I want to express my sincere gratitude to the people of Sligo and all the people of Ireland for giving a home to this beautiful monument and for giving more than we can ever say to our city and our nation.
The monument is not just of local significance, it's of national significance, and indeed of international significance, I might say. And so the statue of Michael Corcoran, which stands in Ballymote today, is one of which the nation can be proud of, not just Sligo men.
What I really liked about it, facing eastward, facing to the rising sun, the hope and the promise of each day. And I think it's wonderful that Ballymote and the town of Ballymote has finally honoured its son, the great Michael Corcoran.
Mayor Bloomberg's visit to County Sligo had been eagerly awaited, and there was a huge amount of organising to do. For Fine Gael Deputy John Perry, his tireless work had proved worthwhile, and it was a particularly satisfying moment for him. The local community left no stone unturned in their preparations, and Ballymote had never looked better. Sligo County Council, local Gardaí, Ballymote Community Enterprise Company Limited and local businesses, as well as a team of volunteers, made sure that everything was in place. After flying into Ireland West Airport in Knock, Mayor Bloomberg and his party made their way to City Hall in Sligo for a special reception. His visit generated considerable media attention and highlighted the strong links between Sligo and the United States.
There are no strangers here, only friends you haven't yet met. And that's just the way I feel this morning. Delighted to be here among friends, old ones and new ones.
On then to Ballymote, where large crowds had assembled for the occasion. The red carpet was rolled out. People had come from near and far for the big day. The Boyle Marching Band strode by. Also there were members of American Legion posts and the Chief of Staff of the Irish Defence Forces, Ballymote native, Lieutenant General Jim Shreenan. Mayor Bloomberg then reviewed a Guard of Honour from the 58th Reserve Infantry Battalion. Among the celebrities in attendance was Irish dancing superstar Michael Flatley, whose father hails from Sligo, and his partner Niamh O'Brien. Mayor Bloomberg took time out to talk with local people before the formal proceedings, where the Master of Ceremonies was Marie Louise O'Donnell. Before a number of speakers addressed the assembled audience, flute player Matt Malloy of the Chieftains, another man with local connections, gave a rendition of Easter Snow and the Rights of Man. The first speaker was the Chargé d'Affaires at the United States Embassy in Ireland, Jonathan Benton.
In his first inaugural address, Abraham Lincoln found cause for hope amidst the despair of the pending cataclysm that was the American Civil War by saying that Americans would someday again be touched by the angels of our better nature. Most would say that those angels were a long time coming, and many people on both sides suffered unspeakably at battlefields such as Gettysburg, Antietam, and Bull Run. The Irish in America made their contribution to maintain the Union out of all proportion to their numbers, and leaders such as Sligo's own Michael Corcoran and Waterford's Thomas Francis Marr are shining examples of that contribution.
Next to speak was local Fine Gael Dáil deputy John Perry, who highlighted the link between all those who emigrated from Ireland to the United States during the past 200 years.
The Union, our country, and Ireland forever was the call of 200,000 Irish immigrants who served the Army of the North during the American Civil War, who immigrated from Ireland in 1847. 1,200 of them went into battle wearing a green sprig in their hats. They held in their hearts their Irish ancestry and race. Their fight and cause was brilliant and brave. Scores gave their lives to preserve the Union and to preserve the freedom and liberty of the United States of America. Throughout Irish history, they have been written about in song and story. These men who left Ireland's shores, integrated into American society, and helped to form your rich heritage and culture. They served with distinction in the New York Irish Units, the Irish Legion, the Connacht Rangers, the Irish Brigade, the Jackson Guard, the Illinois Irish Legion, the Massachusetts Volunteer Regiment, and the Montgomery Guards. The 69th was formed in 1851 by Irish immigrants who were fighting to preserve the unity of their adopted homeland. The men of the 69th displayed a remarkable personal courage. They were born both of Irish identity and an American military comradeship. Among them was a young man born in Carrickeel, just 5 miles down the road from here.
Mayor Bloomberg then addressed those in attendance and said it was a real honour for him to be in Ballymote.
It really is an honor to be here in beautiful Ballymote for such a special occasion, and I want to thank you, John in particular, and everyone who worked so hard to bring this day to life. John, I particularly want to thank all the people of Ballymote and Sligo for so graciously understanding the difficulties that back in New York that required us to postpone our trip by 3 weeks. I can tell all of you that the telephone call I had to make to John to tell him that I couldn't come that day was one of the more difficult ones that I had to make in my career. To say that he was understanding is a bit overstating it, but nevertheless, when I committed to come within 3 weeks, I don't know, did I make that 3 weeks? I did. It is great to be back in Ireland. This is not my first trip. I've been to Dublin many times, but this is my first real visit to the West. And from the people that I've met this morning, I can tell you it will not be my last. At least now, when New Yorkers tell me how beautiful the west of Ireland is, I can look them in the eye and say, "'Tis." I would like to begin with an old saying I learned 4 years ago from your president, Mary McAleese, when she joined us in New York City for the dedication of the Irish Hunger Memorial. She reminded us that those who drink the water should remember with gratitude those who dug the well. And today we remember with gratitude all those members of the Fighting 69th whose sacrifices over the past 150 years helped dig a well deep enough to quench the human thirst for freedom, not only in America, but around the world. As John said, when JFK became the first American president to visit Ireland 43 years ago, he brought with him a special gift for the Irish people, an original flag of the Fighting 69th. It was a small token of thanks for the gift that the Irish have given America, and men like Ballymote's Michael Corcoran and thousands of others who gallantly marched underneath that green flag in some of the bloodiest battles of the Civil War, from Bull Run to Fredericksburg to Gettysburg. After the Battle of Malvern Hill, in which the Irish Brigade once again distinguished itself for bravery, President Lincoln visited his officers in the field. In a quiet moment, he lifted the green flag to his lips, kissed it, and said, "God bless the Irish flag." That flag, with its golden harp and shamrocks, reminded those who marched under it that in fighting for liberty and union, they were also honoring the cause of liberty in Ireland. In battle after battle, they fought with courage that won them the adulation of the North and the admiration of the South. Brigadier General Michael Corcoran became one of the Civil War's most revered heroes. When he returned to New York City after months of captivity in the South, enormous crowds thronged him in a parade up Broadway to New York's City Hall, where I currently work. When he died, his body was laid in state in our City Hall, just down the corridor from where my desk is, and people came from far and wide to pay their last respects. His successor as commander of the 69th was a fellow Irishman, the legendary Thomas Francis Marr. At Marr's funeral in New York City, his eulogist said, "Never forget this. He gave all, lost all for the land of his birth. He risked all for the land of his adoption, was her true and loyal soldier, and in the end, died in her service." So it could be said for much of the Irish Brigade. And although the 69th suffered terrible casualties in the Civil War, its tradition of valor, and its connection to Ireland lived on. When the Fighting 69th was reactivated for World War I, about 95% of the men who joined the regiment were Irish. Their chaplain, Father Francis Duffy, said the rest of the men were Irish by adoption, Irish by association, or Irish by conviction. Today, the 69th is as diverse as New York City is itself. But I think Father Duffy's words would still hold true. Just as every New York City mayor is a little bit Irish, so is every member of the Fighting 69th. All New Yorkers are deeply proud of our city's connection to the Fighting 69th, its past and present, and we have been deeply moved by the supreme sacrifices its recent members have made. Today, we are honored to be joined by a member of the 69th, Michael Drew, who is also a sergeant in the New York City Police Department. Michael's 4 grandparents came from Ireland, and he has followed in the footsteps of his father, who also served in the Fighting 69th. Michael and all the members of the Fighting 69th accepted some of the most dangerous assignments in Iraq with a courage that would make their predecessors proud. 19 soldiers from the 69th have been killed in Iraq, 10 from New York and 9 from Louisiana. More than 50 others have been wounded. Today, we honor all of them, and we remember especially 2 New York City residents who served with Michael and who were killed in an ambush on November 29, 2004. Wilfredo Urbina and Christian Engeldrum, who was also a member of New York City's fire department. Christian began his career as a member of New York City Police Department, and he also served our nation in Operation Desert Storm. He spent his life protecting our city and our nation. When he died, his beautiful wife Sharon was 3 months pregnant with their 3rd child. And today, I am honored to say Sharon is here with us. Sharon, I know that Christian is here with us too, and I know how proud he must be of the way you've been so strong for the kids, Sean, Royce, and Kristen. We are forever in your debt for the sacrifices you have made. In honoring your husband and all the members of the Fighting 69th, we also honor you and all the family members of the 69th who have lost loved ones, from Bull Run to Root Irish. The Fighting 69th has always answered the call to defend and protect America, and on September 11th, 2001, the call they answered was a local call. On New York City's darkest day, the members of the Fighting 69th were one of the first military units to respond to the attacks. One member, Gerard Baptiste, who was also a New York City firefighter, died while saving others in the World Trade Center. His bravery and the bravery of all the firefighters and police officers who rushed to the Twin Towers, many Irish, but other New Yorkers too, was as great as anything done in the face of enemy fire at Fredericksburg or the Argonne Forest. It is fitting that steel from the World Trade Center has been incorporated into this monument, and I want to thank as well Kathleen and Jack Lynch for helping make this happen. Their son Michael, like Gerard Baptiste and 341 others, was a firefighter who died while saving thousands of lives. I've had the pleasure over the last 5 years of getting to know Kathleen and Jack, and every year I've marched with them in the Bronx St. Patrick's Day Parade, and along the route we always pause at a memorial to Michael right next to his firehouse. Kathleen's family, you should know, is from County Sligo, which makes their support of this memorial all the more meaningful. The Fighting 69th has left its mark on New York City in so many ways. You will find the history of the Fighting 69th, not only in its historic armory, but in Times Square, where a statue of Father Duffy greets millions of people every day. At Old St. Patrick's Church in Lower Manhattan, there is a plaque honoring the Fighting 69th and Michael Corcoran, who attended daily Mass there. And in Calvary Cemetery, in the thriving Irish community of Woodside, Queens, rests many a Fighting 69th leader, including Corcoran. During the Civil War, the members of the Fighting 69th wore green sprigs in their hats, just as the United Irishmen had done in the 1798 uprising. In honor of the wearing of the green, I've brought with me a sprig of grass from Corcoran's gravesite as a symbol of his enduring spirit. And I've brought with me as well a poem that a contemporary of Corcoran's and Marr wrote in honor of these United Irishmen. And I think it's appropriate to read a verse of it today in their honor, in honor of Christian Engeldrum and Wilfredo Urbina, and all those who gave everything in the service of the Fighting 69th. We drink the memory of the brave, the faithful and the few. Some lie far off beyond the wave. Some sleep in Ireland too. All are gone, but still live on. The fame of those who died. All true men, like you men, remember them with pride. Today, we remember all those members of the Fighting 69th who helped America dig and preserve a deep well of freedom. May it flow forever strong. And we think of how proud so many of them would be today to see the ties between Ireland and America closer than ever, and to see both lands prospering as never before. So on behalf of the people of New York City, I want to express my sincere gratitude to the people of Sligo and all the people of Ireland for giving a home to this beautiful monument and for giving more than we can ever say to our city and our nation. Thank you, and God bless.
The final speaker was Ballymote native Patrick McGettrick of the New York-based Sligo Social and Benevolent Association, and he too spoke about the historical significance of the day's events.
Deputy Perry and I had a tour of Ground Zero to see firsthand the devastation and destruction which had occurred on 9/11. It was during that time that John brought to my attention the Brigadier General Michael Corcoran, one of the original founders of the Fighting 69th Regiment, came from Carrickeel, not far from Ballymote, and who had sailed from the port of Sligo to